Hi guys, my name is Ashton Marr. I'm the captain of the Dublin Senior Camogie team, and I'd just like to thank you all very much for your time in being here today on behalf of all of the players here who are the captains and representatives of the Senior Inter-County Camogie and LGFA teams. The format that today will take will be a brief introduction by Maria Curley and Niamh Mallon on my right as to why we're here today. We'll follow that up by some examples from players, some player experiences, and we'll open the floor to a Q&A then at the end as well.
Hi everyone, Maria Curley here, Tipperary ladies football captain. So today representatives of the Senior Inter-County Camogie and football panels are here before you representing our representative teams as well as our fellow players from the intermediate and junior grades with their full support. We find ourselves in a situation we never wish to be in, echoing the experiences of our soccer and rugby counterparts in recent years. Regrettably, we feel that our national governing bodies do not want to hear our real concerns, so we're speaking directly to you. We will play the remainder of the 2023 Championship under protest. Our representative body, the Gaelic Players Association, released the State of Play report 2 months ago, which shed light on significant issues within our training and playing environments. The main request has been well documented. We asked the LGFA, the Camogie Association and the GAA to engage in discussions with the GPA to develop a charter designed for female players to be implemented in the 2024 season. This charter would establish minimum standards for our collective welfare. Under the report's publication, the GPA privately contacted the 3 national governing bodies seeking collaboration to achieve an agreed upon charter. Our aim was to work together towards a positive outcome that would make us all proud.
Morning everybody, Niamh Mallon here, Down Camogie captain. And I suppose despite initial positive indications, the GAA has since declined our proposal. The Camogie Association, however, did request a presentation to be made to their Orcolia, which took place last week. Regrettably, the LGFA has not deemed it appropriate to respond. The primary rationale is that they prepared to complete the integration process before initiating a charter for female players. Despite the evidence presented, they expect us to patiently endure the treatment of second-class citizens. We are no longer willing to wait. It has been over 18 months since integration was declared a priority and voted in by the membership of the 3 associations. While the national governing bodies claim to be listening, it is evident that they are not truly hearing us. Urgent issues affecting player welfare have been brought to their attention, yet they refuse to even engage collectively to discuss solutions. We as players are not receiving the respect we deserve. Therefore, we do not expect business as usual in the upcoming weeks and months. In recent months, Cavan's footballers and Kildare's Camogie players have shown us what potentially lies in store for us all if nothing changes. We are not willing to wait for 56 more individual battles to arise. We stand here together, unified, and together we will remain resolute in our pursuit of a better future. This is on behalf of all senior inter-county ladies football and Camogie panels. Thank you.
So with that context kind of highlighted then by the 2 girls, we're just going to move on and give some examples of the challenges and difficulties that have been faced by individual panels which are representative of a lot of the bigger problems across the country. So we're going to start by going to Nasa from Cavan Ladies Football.
Yeah, so Nasa Bird here from Cavan Ladies Football team. Look, playing for your county, male or female, it's a real honour, but with that, being a ladies player, there come some serious struggles, some of which we highlighted with Cavan Ladies recently. One of those struggles is the expenses incurred for our senior county teams and junior and intermediate teams. As a captain, I've had players confiding in me about the expenses, the financial burden that playing county football has on them. You know, girls are crying saying that they actually can't financially afford to play county football. This shouldn't be a distraction, nor should it be a reason for girls to step aside from playing the sport that they love. And we as players feel that something from the top really has to happen quickly before you lose some of the best players in the country.
Vicky Wallen-Mead. Yeah, I suppose we're here today, and whether you step out as a junior, intermediate or senior inter-county player, the commitment and the level of commitment that you give week in, week out is the exact same. But from our own perspective in Meath, I've really struggled with pitch access this year. On top of that, physio access within training is not available to us at the moment. So girls are out of pocket and going to physio outside training, trying to sort of things as simple as a nibble. On top of that, the process of trying to claim that money back that girls are significantly out of pocket for is a very tough process at the moment. So I suppose on behalf of all the players, we're just not willing to accept it anymore.
Chloe Morey, Clare Camogie. I suppose we're sitting all here together, unified as players, but even I think it transcends that from female sports in general. The message is clear from the NGBs. From our perspective, it's that if you want strength and conditioning, sort it out yourself. If you want facilities, sort it out yourself. Nutrition, gear, travel expenses, sort it out yourself. It's nothing to do with us, and I suppose that's the sentiment that's felt between all players here. We're here elite players of our sport, our national sport. You can't get any higher than what we're playing, and we're being told, sort it out yourself. We're going to schools, we're going to clubs, there's young girls looking up to us wanting to play county, and it's a bit twofold. You're trying to inspire the younger generation to want to play your national sport, but do we really want them to come into this sphere or this environment that you have to have money and you have to have a resilience to it, because at the moment it's just not good enough. And that message is very clear from the NGBs at the moment. What we're asking is, we understand that they're in the listening phase of integration, but we think the GA, LGFA and Camogie can actually come together for this charter and set minimum standards across the board, because the experiences from one county to the next, playing for your county as a female player, are vastly different, and it's just not good enough anymore, and we're not willing to stand for it.
Carla Rowe, Dublin Senior Ladies Captain. I think everyone here today obviously plays inter-county, and this is not where we want to be, and it's not where we want to have to be, but it is something that we know we have to do in order for our sport to grow, and in order for us to look out for each other as players. I echo everything all the rest of the girls have said, in that we all put in so much time, we put in so much effort, and we are looking for equality. I think that's a basic, and we're not looking for too much. It's player welfare, it's your health, it's physios, it's food, it's nutrition. And from a Dublin perspective, we are very, very lucky in that we have probably got one of the more effective or one of the more looked after setups, but that is just pure down to luck, and that's not good enough anymore. It's not good enough that we've got junior teams who, I've heard stories today, are falling over potholes in pitches and doing their ACLs, and they're out for 9 months because they're playing a sport they love and because they're going out and doing something that they love, but they're not looked after well enough. So yeah, I just think enough is enough, and we have to take a stance on that.
Lisa Carrickey, Mayo Ladies Football. So I suppose we're all competitors here on the field of play, but we stand united today in that our problems are all the same. We're facing challenges every day that we go out onto the pitch, and it's time to make a change and to make a stance. We voted for integration 18 months ago, but from a player's perspective, nothing has changed in them 18 months, and we're now asking for action. It's not good enough that players are forced to make a decision whether they can afford to come down to train in midweek. We have 15 college players on our team, and they're being supported by their family members to make that decision to come down to training and to be able to put diesel in the car. So it's not good enough at this day and age that we're putting them in that position. Equally, we've lots of girls who are being forced to make a decision whether they choose education or the game they love, and they all want to be playing for their football. It's an absolute privilege to be playing for your county, and we're looking to create a better future for all them players that are coming after us.
Niamh Rocket, Waterford Camogie. Just echoing what the girls said as well there, it's just not good enough. The standard has risen in previous years. We've gotten better facilities, we've gotten better nutrition, but it's still nowhere near the same as our male counterparts. I grew up with my brother playing water football and hurling at a very high standard, and then I used to go to his trainings and go to watch his matches, and I was excited to play. And when I eventually get to the elite level of playing senior camogie, there was just a stark contrast in nutrition, facilities, gear, and how I got looked after. And that was 10 years ago my brother played. So I don't see a whole pile has risen substantially since then. And I think it's just time for change. We want a better standard for everyone, a better standard for the young girls that are playing camogie and football. And that if I go to my niece or my nephew, that they'll get the same standard whether they go play club or county or an elite level. And I want the same for both of them, not just for your male counterparts and a stark difference between that and your female counterparts. And I think it's time is now, and it's not just an option anymore, it's a necessity.
Thanks guys. Yeah, so hopefully that gives you a little bit of context, a little bit of insight, I guess, just to kind of sum up what the guys have said. Obviously we've had 6 senior inter-county captains speak here today, but as you can see from all of the jerseys here, we're representing not only the senior inter-county teams, but also the intermediate and junior teams who are probably experiencing even worse conditions than what we have. For those of us who do have good setups and good county boards and good managements in comparison to the other teams, we're still kind of holding our breaths and reliant on whether it's AIG staying in as a sponsor with Dublin or a good county chairman staying in place with the county board, because as soon as we have change or turnover, we're on the back foot again and we don't know what we're getting the following year. So as has been highlighted, we're here in solidarity today with all of the senior teams and all of the inter and junior teams to demand better standards for the female players coming up behind us. And as Carla highlighted when she was speaking, obviously this is not where any of us want to be in the middle of our senior inter-county championships, speaking to media and highlighting the need for basic standards to improve. So just to give you a little bit of context as to how we've ended up in this position and how we got here today, I'd like to invite Tom Parsons to just let you know the work that's been done by the GPA up until here, which has led to us being in these circumstances.
Hi folks, huge thanks for taking time out today, and huge respect to the players who's taken time out of their weekend that is filled with with work or education and playing high performance sports. So look, from our perspective, it's really important that the GPA is the voice of the players, and the voice of the players is very strong, and that there needs to be change. And the rate of change that we see today will never be as slow, and 18 months or 2 years or 3 years in an integration process, we're going to see too many players transition from the game. So when you look at Gaelic games, a huge element of that is role modelling, and for young people to play our games. I've read some stats from a recent study that the GA facilitated of 5,000 children, that the number one role model to inspire kids to play the game is intercounty players, male and female, and number 2 is their parent. And to me, that just shows how important it is that kids are looking up to role models, to players that want to go and represent their clubs and their counties at the highest level. And it's just not good enough. We see equality in education, schools, universities, in our workplaces, and sport is meant to be a reflection of what we want to see happen in society. And it's hugely disappointed that in 2023 we're still talking about the disparity and the lack of equality that we see between male and female players in an amateur game. This is an amateur game. There's not big contracts. This is not asking for contracts. This is to ensure that players don't incur the cost, and they're not evaluating their social circumstances or the financial prowess of their parents or their family as a decision to play the game. If anybody in their county, male or female, is good enough to represent their county, play with their county, male or female, in any of the codes, your financial prowess, to be able to pick up the physio bills, to be able to pay for the nutrition requirements to be an inter-county player, to be able to pay for fuel to get in the car and travel all around the country, the country and the county, should not be a part of the decision-making process. That is a non-negotiable for all players who represent their county. So look, today, when we look back and we reflect in private behind closed doors, we've had numerous engagements with obviously the integration committee, which comprises of the NGBs in Croke Park at the highest level. We've presented the state of play report. It's facts. It's not subjective. It's objective facts of the standards that are on the field of play. We've had one-to-one meetings and we've circulated a formal letter of request asking the NGBs to work together. The solutions that we're talking about cannot be achieved individually. The only way they can be achieved is collectively by the three associations and a sharing of resources, and the resources are there. So I just want to reflect on behalf of the National Executive Committee, Maria Kinsella, Mallow Hanlon, Donal Cusick and Aoife Murray. Huge thanks to the girls for representing their squads and taking time out today, and huge thanks to you guys for covering this hugely important story on not just Gaelic games but sport and society in general. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Tom. There we go. Nearly went smoothly. Thanks very much for your time and attention, and if anybody has any questions that they'd like to ask, either to somebody individually or else we'll field them between us as best we can.
Actually, did you contemplate a strike?
Yeah, I think when we get to a position where we're being forced to sit here in front of media and to address this in the middle of our championship, I think that's reflective of just how seriously we're taking this. Obviously, we train and we play, you know, week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, year out, because we want to be playing matches. Striking from a game is probably the last thing that anybody wants to do when they give as much time and energy to the setup as we do. But we are playing this championship under protest, and if we don't see improvement in the circumstances, and if we don't feel that we're being listened to and that our national governing bodies are trying to interact with us and help improve our circumstances, then we will be forced into a position of protest.
And in relation to the LGFA, how did they communicate with you that they weren't communicating with you, or what's the situation? Because it's a little bit confusing here. It says their primary rationale. I don't know whether that's the LGFA or anybody different.
Yeah, I'll come in on that one. So the rationale that came back from the GAA Camogie Association is the integration process comes first before they can collectively engage in addressing the significant welfare issues of players. We've not yet received a response from the LGFA from our letter and from our presentation to the integration committee.
When was that submitted to them?
The date of the presentation to the integration committee? 9 weeks.
9 weeks is the last report of the integration committee presentation was mid-April.
3 weeks. So we get the exact date. I think it was 11 weeks. The first request of this joint initiative to sit at the table to look at solutions is 11 weeks.
Ashley, can you tell what might playing under protest, what might that actually look like on a game-to-game basis?
Look, obviously our priority here is to come to a point of resolution. So the exact protest is not something that we have discussed at any length or agreed as a collective. I think we've seen examples in the male game of things that they've been pushed to. You know, whether that's delaying start times, not speaking to media, whatever things we've seen in the GAA are all viable options to us if we get forced into that position. But definitely our priority is to try and get this issue solved and to find a resolution without getting to that point. If we don't get feedback and if we don't get engagement from both the LGFA and Camogie, then that is a conversation that we'll have to have as a collective and something that we'll have to agree as a collective.
Actually, no, Tom, regarding the charter, is there any specific stumbling block, do you think, like perhaps expenses or?
Yeah, I suppose
the mileage rate or something
yeah,
like that?
Unfortunately, we're not even in a position where we've got agreement to sit around the table to talk about solutions. So, you know, we have equality there, but you know, we haven't even reached the stage of fairness, and that's really disappointing. You know, there's not a demand. There's been no demand to mirror the exact charter of the male players right now. That's exactly where we want to get to. But what's so disappointed from players, and we've reflected the facts back to players as our duty of the representative body, is that there's been no intent or effort or will to get around a table to look at solutions. So we've no doubt that there'll be a phased approach to get to where we want to get to. But from our perspective, it's just absolutely unacceptable to not take the state of play report serious, look at those statistics and reflect that.
The state of play report said one thing that it was, and I think nearly 80% of you didn't have access to a team doctor. That struck me as very alarming. But I have a show of hands from where you're sitting now in terms of who has access to a team doctor. Just a little higher, maybe? Sorry.
Just one point on the team doctor thing. I think, I'm not sure if I can speak on behalf of the group here, but a lot of the team doctors have an affiliation or association with the team, so our own team doctor would have been a member of our team's father, so that's the only reason we're in a position to have a team doctor at the moment.
I know you mentioned, I suppose, girls falling into potholes at training doing their ACL. Is there any specific stories that really jump out, when you all came together to discuss it? Just to highlight the unfairness and inequality that you've experienced in the past few years.
I'm just speaking from actually talking to another member of the LGFA, not in my team, but probably representative of team in the lower divisions at the minute, and that was actually a story that I came across earlier last week, that the only pitch available to them was a pitch that was covered in rabbit holes, and the girl ended up falling and tearing her ACL essentially, and that was a pitch that the male team had refused to train on. So the females ended up training on it then because the males didn't need it or didn't want it.
I think it was NASA who said earlier, you've spoken to people who said they can't afford to play inter-county football. Just anecdotally, how many players sitting on the stage today know players who left the game because they couldn't afford to play anymore?
And just, could anybody give us an example of how long it's taken you to get expenses? It's very vague when we hear we can't get expenses or it's difficult to get expenses, and obviously that's a truth. But is there anything specific that you can use for that?
Well, yeah, just with Cavan and obviously the recent dispute that we've had, we had agreed to give 40 cent a mile, but that's only for girls travelling from college. So that's I'm a home-based player, I'm not getting any expenses. But that 40 cent a mile now is finished because girls aren't in college anymore. I suppose the problem was when we were looking at getting expenses, we had nothing to go off. We looked at what the men were getting. They get 70 cent a mile, but if they share a car, you get €1 a mile. So we've asked for almost half of what the men are getting, and that's the problem. I suppose we accept always second best, and we were probably laughed at for offering or for asking for 40 cent a mile, but we had nothing to go off. And I suppose us in Cavan, we want something so that other girls here beside me next year during the league aren't fighting with their county boards because they don't have a figure. They don't, it could be 50 cent, they could ask for 80 cent. There's nothing to go by. So that's why we need a centralised document to say this is what it is. If you're from Dublin or if you're from Leitrim, it doesn't matter.
Tom, do you think the relevant county boards, both Camogie and ladies football, are in a position to pick up this tab?
I think collectively, when you look at the resources available to the GEA, there's significant resources. When you consolidate Central Council accounts, Croke Park accounts, Cork-Queeve, provincial councils, county board accounts, which is difficult because not everyone is published. You're looking at about 150 million in revenue, and it's hard to be exact in that figure, but you could certainly put a significant range there. The men's intercounty expenses is about 4 to 5% of that, so it might seem like a big figure. When you break it down on average for a male player, I think the average cost we looked at, 36 weeks, 4 sessions a week, is about €18 a training session, to cover that cost of everything to go travelling. So I definitely think the resources are there collectively, where the challenge is the LGFA and the Camogie Association with their P&Ls would have, probably, if you looked at their P&Ls, would it be collectively 10 million compared to what the GAA have at their disposal. So the only way this solution can happen is if the three NGBs work together, and equally there's elements within the control of the LGFA and the Camogie Association to look at the charter that would be in their control to try and drive standards. But equality can't happen individually, no matter what the goodwill is, until you're actually sharing resources, sharing pitches, looking at minimum standards for male and female players. Can you achieve this? To put it into perspective, at a very, very high level, this is an amateur game that we're very proud of. The male players aren't taken, we don't have the challenge other federations around the world have. If you look at other federations, because it's a professional game, 50% of revenues of that 150 million goes in salaries. So we don't have that cost in the men's game. So we're in a very unique position to achieve equality for male and female players. And when you look at the future of sport around the world, really Gaelic games should be an icon for what we've achieved in terms of grassroots sports, investment back into grassroots, and for male and female players to be treated equally. And we can do it. Other sports around the world don't have that luxury because they have contracts that is a runaway train. So the resources are there collectively. We can absolutely be more creative in terms of procurement services for male players in intercounty setups. There's definitely savings there. When we look at the GPA, for example, when we merged with the WGPA, we had the same resources, but we worked and went out to the market. We had internally hired, and we were able to deliver the same resources for 4,000 players because there was a will, and the male players haven't not benefited from it. So it's really about the NGBs getting in the room together and looking at solutions. But individually, it's proven that the standards can't be met until collectively they start working together.
So at the moment, the issue comes back to integration essentially, then, doesn't it? Because as it stands, the GAA have the vast majority of the money, but until integration is completed, everyone on the stage isn't a GAA player; they're LGFA Camogie players.
Yeah, exactly. So what players can't wait is an indefinite period of an implementation phase of integration. I mean, a lot of players will be long retired, and already there's a sharing of resources to some respects in terms of funding towards the LGFA and funding towards the Camogie Association, and that needs to be increased. So when you look at other integrations around the world, there was a phased approach where you actually you don't not solve the issues at hand, you solve issues in tandem with integration, and then the biggest challenges is maybe left to the end, but you've made such good work along the way. So we've already seen some steps by the government to come in and equalise funding. The government has come in and has told that all boards and governing bodies need to have 40% gender balance. So these are all initiatives that are going in the right direction. This is an initiative that will help propel the integration in the right direction. The players can't wait. The players can't wait another year, another 2 years, 3 years where players opt out not to play. And in all respect, the members on the ground voted for integration. Every member at the respective congresses voted to prioritise integration and ensure equal investment, recognition and opportunity. So the request is there. It's voted on. It needs to be acted upon now. And we can't see this, the players have just lost a tolerance to not being treated equally and players passively leaving the game. There's a question there is, are players striking, or is there willing to strike? We probably could create evidence that there's already a strike happening. It's a passive strike, where players are looking at the costs and are passively opting out in 1s and 2s and 5s and 10s not to play for the county. So that's the seriousness of it.
What's the latest, Tom, you have upon the integration? Because I think there was a statement in February, and they were talking about a listening process that was going to go on for the remainder of the year. Is there any update on that from your end?
Very little update off from their statement that said integration will be underpinned by equality. In their last statement, that was integration is underpinned by equality, and I suppose from a player's perspective, if it's going to be underpinned by equality, it's an absolute no-brainer to get around the pitch and solve very prudent issues in the here and now. So I suppose from a player, look, I mean, you can integrate and you can worry about boards and formations and, you know, what does it look like, but game is about players. So the players only want to see what's happening on the ground, not what's going on behind the scenes in boardrooms. So you need to take action, and I think the players have been very patient to give time to that integration process. They've given 18 months, and that patience has worn thin.
And last one, Tom, the Cavan men are getting 70, Cavan ladies are getting 40 for coming down from college, but only when they're at college. Is it a core tenet of your position that whatever the men are getting in their county, the women will get exactly the same?
Oh, eventually, absolutely, yeah.
But it's not the hill you're going to die on in this particular one.
That's what we want. We want an equal charter, but I mean, we're not seeing any effort to phase that. You know, if that's phased over 6 months, over 12 months, then that's a decision for the members to say, are you happy with this phased approach in terms of funding? But we're not seeing that. The players aren't able to make a decision on that because they're not getting any feedback. But that's an absolute decision with the players. We need the NGPs to get in the room to try and design some solutions, and we'll go back to the players and to say, are you happy with this phased approach or this initial approach? But if it was my perspective and my opinion, is that the resources are there to absolutely equalise this in 2024. You know, again, it comes back to it's an amateur game. We're not paying salaries. It's to cover the fuel costs in line with any organisation in Ireland. You know, there's no disparity in any of our organisations where the men get, you know, a male employee gets 70 cents and a female employee gets 60 cents. So why not in 2024 equalise the charter for male and female players? But in the here and now, get on the pitch and let us present something back to players to alleviate the challenges that we're seeing and to address the state of play report.
Did any other counties come close to Kildare situation here? As maybe yourselves, I'm not sure, you know, maybe looking at Palmer in the championship altogether?
Just to say, I'm Tipperary ladies football captain, and I've come from a point where we were playing at an intermediate level. I think as you go up the ranks, things do improve a little bit. So we are speaking on behalf of our intermediate and junior counterparts as well. So I can only imagine if what we have, we're giving out about, things are obviously a lot worse off for those counties. The last thing that we want to do is to not play games. We want to represent our county. We've pride in our county, in our teammates, in our clubs. That's what we want to do. We don't want to be sitting on this stage giving out. And in fairness to Kildare and to Cavan, it takes teams like that with a little bit of go heck to go and do it. It inspires the rest of us to get out here and to speak up about it. But we haven't come to that point yet. But I suppose the most frustrating thing is that we're not being listened to. Cavan went in search of 40 cent a mile, but I think it's close to 90% on the state of play report that are getting 0 cent a mile. So it's not that, oh, everyone is nearly there, they're halfway there, they're not. That's just Cavan having a bit of fight in them to go and fight with their county boards, and like that, we're not blaming individual county boards. You know, we know that a lot of them are doing their best, but it's the fact that there's no guidance, no governance coming from above. That's the most frustrating thing.
Vicky, just in your own situation, obviously there's a pull aspect with the AFLW. Is this the push aspect now? Is this something that you feel might push more players to just concentrate on Australia rules?
Yeah, look, I can't speak on behalf of everyone else, but I mean, when you go away and you know you're left wanting for nearly nothing, and you know you turn up to training and there's 6 physios there's a lot of S&Cs and you're covered on all bases. I mean, it does make you question when you're putting in the exact same areas over in Ireland, and you know, you look across and the men are training the pitch beside you, and you could be travelling from the exact same place as them. You could be meeting them at the gym on a Tuesday night, you could be meeting them travelling to games, and you think, you know, I'm out of pocket here. Like, it's not a case of, you, like Tom said, we're asking for salaries, like we're out of pocket, like as in there's a huge disparity. If you're to make a pros and cons list when you're making a decision, and you look at X and you look at Y, and if you were to compare at the moment what a male inter-county player gets to what a female inter-county player gets, I mean, like, it's frustrating is a PC term to use for it, to be honest, at the moment. Like, as in, it's so infuriating that we are putting in like serious efforts to be taken seriously as elite athletes for our national sport, and it's not a case of like asking about mileage percentage and things like that. No, like, we're actually just not even being listened to at the moment. Like, there's not even a chance to discuss solutions. Like, if you put it black and white that we are, like, they are getting 20 things and we're getting 0 essentially, and it's not even a case of being listened to. Like, it's, yeah, just really, really frustrating.
And Chloe, you said that the constant response was sorted out yourself. Are you saying that that's the response you get from your own county board officers, is sorted out yourself? Where does that come from?
No, to be fair, as Maria had said, I think there's only so far your county board can go. They need guidance from the top. They're not getting any guidance. It's new territory for everybody. We've been so lucky that we've had a grant from the government. The GPA have sought that for us. But for example, as you said, the team doctor, like if there's something wrong with me, I have to go sort it out myself, a scan, physio, things like that. You could go to the county board, they'll do their best, but their hands are tied in certain respects. I suppose the essence of what we're trying to get at is we are going to find solutions if the three bodies come together. We just need to get into a room and talk about these solutions. The county boards are looking for guidance. I know from my own county board, they're looking to see how more can we help, you know. They do need that guidance, that advice. But like as we said, look, we're not willing to tolerate this anymore, and we're, you know, it's a serious issue for a while, but it's come to a point now where we're willing to act on this as a unified stance from the players' point of view.
Tom, can I just ask one minute? Did you actually set down as the GA?
Yeah, so we presented the state of play report to the GA, the LGFA and the Camogie Association in the integration committee. That was the fulcrum of the report, to highlight what the players have done from a governance perspective. I suppose in high performance sport we talk a lot about the circles of control, so focus on what's in your control before you try and influence what's not in your control. So from a player's perspective, everything that's within the control of players, from our governance, 50-50 NEC, 50-50 board, shared exact same scholarship for male and female players, 50-50 engagement and participation in all our programs. We've done everything within our control to try and support equality. So we presented that to the integration committee. We presented the state of play report, and very passionately with, you know, Maria Kinsella, Matt O'Hanlon, Aoife Murray, and myself representing all 4 codes, we asked and very passionately asked the NGBs to get on the pitch and work together to solve this problem. So that was in person, and we've subsequently, you know, tabled it at various meetings behind closed doors. And you know, I think it's very important that, you know, sometimes in engagements with the GPA, you might be engaging with a representative like me, but in reality, I'm the messenger boy and I serve the players, and it's great to see the players, you know, here echoing the need for this initiative.
So the Ladies football's position is that they're different integration, or first that's what they're saying. Camogie is the age what's the extent, but if the GA just flat.
So the response, the formal response from the GA and the Camogie Association was, until integration has happened, they're separate NGBs and they won't work on a charter together. unfortunately we haven't got any formal correspondence back from the LGFA yet on this item and what their position is, but we can take it that collectively they've came together to say that this is an item post integration.
Just in terms of other areas, girls, like we talked about the expenses, we know that's a huge issue. In terms of food after training or going to games, how many of you here would get that? And in terms of maybe like expenses towards boots, does any of you get that? And if you just want to maybe give an example of the type of gear you get, I know that was mentioned at the start as well. Is there a problem in any areas of any team with the gear you get?
Yeah, again, I suppose from our perspective, the last few years, it may have been lucky to be successful, but it's been a case until you're reaching the very latter end of the season in championship that you're getting gear. This year, all new panel members would have received gear, but anyone who was on the panel previously is using the gear that we've had in previous years. There's a case of someone on the panel this year, wearing someone else's shorts for their first game in, like as in that is an example, and I'm sure I know for a fact from speaking to other players that it's the same on different panels. I think it comes down to funding as well, though, as in when you're looking at the list of necessities, if people have a minimal amount of gear, we're putting the money into food or things that are deemed more critical, but obviously gear is still part of a minimum standard, but at the moment it probably is a bit lower down the priority list for panels, I think.
Has there ever been a situation where girls didn't have enough money? They turn to maybe one of you that are the more experienced players on the team to say, look, I actually don't have the funds here to do this?
This a certain instance when you're talking to maybe other counties as well, but there's been 2 instances where I've heard of recently girls who need surgery on their knee who can't afford it. They might have to front up the money, and they've come to the GPA reps to see they can't get the money. They don't have the money for that surgery, so they need to find it somewhere. So it's kind of a big borrow steal of someone who might be able to help out, and you might get it returned to you, the money or whatever. But there's been 2 instances of that. From the gear point of view, we've had players, and I've heard in other counties as well, rocking into sport shops in certain counties, having to buy Clare GA gear or Limerick GA gear or whatever type of gear because we don't have any county gear to wear to matches. I think the big thing is, even with the nutrition thing, or even with the thing as a whole, it ebbs and flows from year to year. You don't know if it's going to be the same, if it's going to be consistent. All we're asking is that it's a minimum standard across the board between counties, from year to year, especially within a county. And I think that point is really, really important, just minimum standards, but it needs to come from the top down, and I think solutions will be found if the 3 NGBs come in that room together. It's not necessarily to a point it's a county board issue, they're doing their best, but it has to come from the top down. That's where the solutions will be found. They need to engage, they need to come into the room, they need to talk, and they need to listen. As you said, I suppose those are those important things.
Tom, is there a comparable year in terms of the GPA and where it was? Obviously, the GPA set up, don't know, probably would know this, but is there a comparable to where the ladies are now, the women are now, compared to where the men were, like 2000 or whatever?
Yeah.
Have you thought of that?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's well documented that there was huge frustration with male players at the time when the GPA was formed. At the time there was investments of in excess of 200 million going into Crow Park, when the narrative and the stories on the ground were very similar. No hot food after training, no expenses, no centralised agreement, players being last on the agenda. And unfortunately, talking to the players and Joe Rose of this world, there was obviously conversations behind closed doors, obvious lobbying, trying to negotiate, and unfortunately it took players to take a position where they were looking at delaying National League games to try and get some parity and some recognition from the GA. And since that recognition agreement in 2010, and the GPA now having a seat at Central Council to make sure the players' voice is heard, and having a charter in place, things have improved vastly for the male players. So absolutely, John, it's disappointing that, you know, and look, I think we see this around the world, you know, with other federations of sports, players need to, you know, actively use their voices to push federations to put the players first. So it's not unique, but, you know, in Ireland we're just very disappointed that we're an amateur game. The ask isn't, you know, the ask isn't something that's not within the, you know, the control or the resources of our governing bodies, and we just want to see real leadership when it comes to equality. Speaking about it, putting players first, listening to the challenges of female players, addressing them, and I think that's really important. So, yeah, absolute. You know, I see Mary could be an exact mirror, and I just hope that it doesn't need to. You know, it doesn't need to go to actually utilising protest action by players. That this can be solved. I think it should, and hopefully the message is loud and clear from today for players that the NGBs will be sitting down at the table and taking the state of play report really, really serious.
I'd just like to follow on from that then, just to wrap things up on behalf of players, to thank the GPA for the work that they've done in levying on our behalf and in representing us, not only in recent weeks and months but over the last number of years. I guess, look, the takeaway message from our behalf as players is, we don't want to be here, we don't want to be doing this, we want this to be solved as quickly as possible. There's obviously huge gratitude on our behalf for the county boards and the work that they do under difficult circumstances and under a lot of restraints, and similarly to sponsors who have come in and sponsored across 4 codes who've made a big impact and a big difference. But we can't be relying on the goodwill of people. We can't be waiting to see whether or not we have the same chairman the next year to give us good facilities, waiting to see whether or not we have the same sponsor the following year to make sure that we get some of our minimum standards. The contrast is just too severe at the moment between what the men are getting and what the women are getting, and we can't wait for this process of integration that could end up taking 5 or 10 years, and everybody on this stage could well be retired before that ever happens. And we need to stand up now for ourselves, for the intermediate and junior teams below us, and for the younger kids coming up behind us, and we need to demand that solutions are found and that circumstances improve in order for us all to keep playing the game that we love and to represent in our counties to the best of our abilities. So thank you very much for your time today.